Craft will take you outdoors at night for an absolutely unique, challenging, and fun experience, night bow fishing. When we come back, we're going to head out onto the West Branch to do something I've never done before. Heck, I had never even heard of it until a couple of months ago. But this has a little something to do with it. The sun was setting on the West Branch of the Susquehanna River on a gorgeous evening in mid-June. It would have been a perfect night to head to the Watsontown Carnival, not too hot or humid, and eventually getting pretty chilly. Instead, we were busy getting boats ready to go into the river. One was from Robbins Marine, brand new and just put together the night before. The other one was specially outfitted with 14 lights at 6,000 lumens apiece. Why would we need that much light on the river? Why to go night boat fishing, of course. Our main boat was with the Day and Night Archery Bow Fishing Guide Service. It's the only service of its kind in the valley and was started 3 years ago by Jeremy Delkamp, our guide for the evening. We were joined on this night by John Eisenhart, who drove the boat from Robbins Marine and works there as well, by Betty Newton, Jeremy's aunt, and a fellow employee from Service Electric Cablevision, Jonathan Brote from the Early Bird Sports Expo, an archery hunter taking his first bow fishing trip, as well as our videographers Dylan Lekevich and Nate Grant. Jeremy normally meets his clients on the river around 7:30 and then heads out. Once they reach their starting destination, there's a little instruction involved, and then they drift, bow fishing until between 1 and 2 o'clock in the morning. While we had 3 for fishing tonight, he normally takes between 2 and 4 people at $125 apiece. The first order of business was to get the Robbins Marine boat in the river, with John then taking it for a spin, much to Dylan's delight, and giving us an amazing river view of the nearby carnival. While they were having fun, Jeremy was back at his truck, determining which bows to use on the night. Once that was done, we had to get his boat in the water. Jeremy told us he wasn't sure if we would start drifting and fishing right away from the Watsontown boat ramp, or if we would head up north and then start. When Jeremy punched the throttle on his boat, it was clear he had made his choice, and it was a fun way to start the expedition. Jeremy has been fishing since he was a kid, and archery hunting for just as long, but wasn't introduced to a combination of the two until 6 years ago, when he was at a local archery shop. It seemed like the best of all worlds to him, and he was addicted right from the start. It also became clear right away that the best time to do it was at night.
You can see better at night, that's why. During the day you got the winds, you got the glare of the sun, it's harder to see in the water. With the lights at night, they just shine right down in, you got usually no wind, and you can see right in the water. So that's why we do it at night. It's a lot easier to see stuff.
It was early in 2016 that he decided to start his business, and he had his LLC number by September of that year. Jeremy got his boat between Christmas and New Year's, how's that for a present, and started rigging it up for 2017.
At the time I was staying home with my daughters, and my wife worked, and then I could go out in the evenings and do this at night, and come back and still watch the girls, so, because I wasn't working, I could get a little income coming in, you know. No, I'm not trying to make a living at it. I'm just trying to make a little bit, you know, pay the bills, and that's that, and just have fun. I want to introduce people to the outdoors. That's the main reason too, is get them involved in this, because it is fun. I mean, anybody can do it, from a little kid to a full-grown guy like us, you know.
He said that his first time out was nerve-wracking because he wasn't sure how it would go. He took friends to make sure everything worked, and his first trip with clients went well too. He tells us that it's just like fishing. There are nights you go out and there are fish everywhere, and other times that you have to go searching for them, and that often means going from one side of the river to the other. So by now you can see it's getting darker. We obviously passed the Watsontown Bridge right away, the Duart one soon after that, and eventually the Montgomery River and Railroad bridges. We knew we were in the Montgomery area not only because Jeremy told us, but because we could see the lights from the Panda Patriot natural gas plant in the distance, if you remember it from our last episode. Along the way we had to travel through some dicey spots, and imagine trying to do it as it was getting dark. So it goes without saying that Jeremy is a pro boat driver. It's also interesting to see the river at night, with spots along it lit up like it's Christmas. There also was this wall, which was an old ordnance wall, but is now just a hazard for boaters like Jeremy and John. Eventually, we reached the destination that Jeremy had in mind. So it was time for a course on how to work a fishing bow.
All right, this is the AMS reel. Everyone's gonna be the same with the arrow. You want the black up. This is the safety slide. You want that in front of the rest. You're gonna put the knock below the brass knock. And the way I always do it, now you're a lefty, so I always take the bow and hold it like this, and I'll show you on the right hander, because everything's tucked tight. You can see everything. You can see where you're knocking it. And then you can reach up and this tip. This is a two-way tip, so you want to tighten the tip and the barbs. The barbs is what loosens up and spins around once you actually have a fish on. So just reach up, tighten them every time. When you go to shoot, keep the line roughly like so. You don't want it down here wrapped around anything or it's gonna not go. This reel, I was telling you, it's an AMS reel. You have to put a little tension on it. It's ready to shoot right now. You can just shoot and go. Put the reel up, you have to put a little bit of tension on it and get it to reel. Too much, it won't reel. Not enough, it won't reel. Okay. When you shoot a fish, just grab the line and start pulling. I'll jump in and do what I can. When you shoot, pull back, anchor in, look at the tip, aim a foot and a half below the fish. Let her fly. It's fast-paced shooting. Anybody sees a fish and it's good, just shoot. Anybody can shoot it, because more arrows at it is better. This is a muck buster. If your arrow gets stuck in the mud or whatever, just take this, pull a bunch of line out, wrap it around much time, use the whole bow to pull it out. Because if you don't, you'll wrap it around your hand, you'll burn yourself. That's yours.
When the lesson ended, Jeremy fired up his 2 onboard generators that power the lights inside the boat to help you see where you're going, and then the 14 big lights so you can see into the river. I'm sure it's interesting to see these lights from afar, almost like a baseball stadium in the middle of the river. Jeremy said he's had motorists stop on bridges and along the river to see what it is. So with Jeremy operating the trolling motor at the bow of the boat, using an app on his phone, I might add, we began to move south. By the way, that beeping noise you may hear at times is Jeremy making trolling motor adjustments on his phone. His main function, besides operating the boat, was to point at the fish we can shoot.
Not allowed to shoot any game fish. So a fish that has a season, you're not allowed to shoot. So that's why we're going for bottom feeding fish, the carp, catfish, and suckers and quailback. There's no season to them.
He also helped us with any problems we might have with the bows. Night bow fishing turned out to be a bit of a challenge, which also is why it turned out to be so much fun. First, you needed to establish if the fish that had suddenly come into the view of the lights was one you could shoot. A lot of the time, Jeremy saw them first and told us to go ahead and fire away.
Right here, right there.
But there were times you saw them and then had to ask.
That's yep, go ahead. You were over it.
So you had a fish in view and pulled the bow up to fire, although I will say that you're in the ready position almost the whole time. You pulled the bow up to aim, and this is when the next challenge presents itself. You don't aim right at the fish.
From there, it's just look at your arrow to point when you draw back, aim low of the fish because the reflection of the water, the fish is actually lower than what you actually see the fish. So when we're out here shooting, you're going to be shooting a foot to a foot and a half below that fish. So
That far below?
that far below, and the deeper it is, the lower you have to aim.
See, when you told me that, I thought it had something to do with maybe the bow hitting the water
Nope.
and then misdirecting.
It's the way the reflection of the light hits on the water. So when you see that fish here, you're going to have, it's actually down here, and you have to aim down there to actually hit that fish.
As you would imagine, that fish wasn't going to just sit there and let you take a shot at it. They were on the move, especially the quailback, which is almost like a small carp. They were darting around the boat. We had to do all of that in just seconds, which involves a bit of a learning curve at first, and usually resulted in many misses.
Oh, way in front of it. Keep going.
That's a muskie. Do not. That is a muskie.
Wow.
Where's that? Right there's a muskie.
Is that the one that's...
That's a federal fish.
That thing.
That's a muskie. That's a quailback.
What is it?
Quailback. Shoot it. Just over it. Got something here coming up. Right there, carp, big carp, right there, back. That was a giant carp.
Jeremy has had other ventures like ours, with not one of the people having any experience, although Jonathan has at least shot a bow. Jeremy said that some people pick it up right away and hit the fish, and that he's only had 2 expeditions where they haven't gotten one. It turned out to be a beautiful night to do this, with a big bright moon overhead, and while the bugs started strong at the start, they didn't hang around for long. We did have plenty of close calls throughout the night, including a few for me when I missed just high.
See it?
Big, huge one.
Just over it. Right there it is.
God,
Yeah.
your shooter's got that.
It wasn't until about 11:30 or so that Jonathan was able to get our first fish.
Lay one. Oh, got him.
Oh, baby.
Right.
Keep going. There.
Oh, yeah. Oh, baby.
There you go.
Got one. You got one. You got our first one.
Dude, great shot.
Thank you.
Nice job.
Surprised me.
Wow, man, what did that feel like shooting that?
I didn't even know. I thought I missed.
Was that your first one?
This is the first time I've ever bow fished. This is the first fish I ever got. Actually, I think that might be my first carp altogether.
So when you saw it, I mean, how'd you know? You just we just rolled up on it, sort of?
Jeremy pointed it out to me. I saw it, and I just pulled back and let it go.
Amazing shot.
This brings us to a question that you may have had right from the start. What happens to the fish? Unfortunately for them, you can't throw them back after an arrow has speared them. Our first fish, and others before it, got thrown into the big blue barrel, and then when the expedition is done, Jeremy took them to a nearby farmer who lets them sit for a little bit before spreading them onto a field as fertilizer. Jonathan got the first fish, while Betty and I continued to fire away unsuccessfully, but not getting at all frustrated. Jeremy did tell us that the boat record is a 30-pound carp, while the smallest was a 6-ounce catfish. He does much of his business on the Susquehanna, specifically the West Branch. The last 2 years on the river have been tough between high and muddy water. He was having trouble keeping up with his schedule last year until July, when we got hit with record-setting rain. He says the river would look like it was about to go back down again before more rain would hit. We were his first clients this year, and he had some scheduled for the following night. He also takes bow fishing clients to the lake at Blanchard, although he prefers to take expeditions to Kawaneski Lake near the New York border, where he says you could shoot all the fish you would want and not make a dent in the population. The other attraction for bow fishing at night on the Susquehanna is the river itself. It's very interesting to be out on it at night, and it presented some pretty amazing views. There also was plenty of nightlife, from a geese doing a little fishing itself to others just hanging out along the bank. We also saw a beaver out doing some overnight work, and surprisingly, it didn't slap the water with its tail to warn us away. Our night turned out to be pretty amazing. Jonathan got one more fish, and then Jeremy jumped into the action at one point and got another. My night rhymed with my full name, Christopher, as in Ophir, and Betty also was shut out. We were back at the Watsontown boat launch by 1:45 in the morning.
If you consider yourself an outdoorsman, then I highly recommend day and night archery and night bow fishing. I'm not a fishing or hunting guy, and I had a great time. Plus, Jeremy is a great guide. You can find him on Facebook, which is where you can also find us if you have a segment idea, or you can email us at iwan@secv8.com. That's going to do it for us. Thanks for tuning in. I'm your host, Chris O'Rourke. We'll see you again next time, maybe from in your neighborhood.